I used to think that college basketball was pretty easy to decipher who's in and who's out. And, I always gave college football credit. They give you about 5 to 10 different talking points of criteria for what they look for in deciding who's in and who's out. And it's done to technically confuse the hell out of your fan base so that they could justify any decision that they make, because they'll have an answer for every decision they make based on all 10 criteria points, but not all 10 criteria points have to stick to every single playoff team and scenario. It's done to where there is no clean cut answer anytime, but there's also no, or they always have an answer, but everyone has different answers and reasons for why they get in. I always thought, that they were, they made that difficult. College basketball is way more difficult. When you add the quad 1, 2, 3, and 4 stuff, when you add all the different metrics that kind of go in to these teams and their ability to make the tournament or not, pop it up on the screen, Casey. I mean, take a look. When you look at the strength of schedule, when you look into the quad 1 wins, when you look into the BPI, the KenPom, the net, their home and away record, their neutral, all of this. That's a lot to take in. If we're trying to debate these teams and their tournament, qualifications based on all of these talking points right here, that's a lot. That's a lot to comb through, a lot to decipher, a lot to take away, obviously, for a radio audience on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. This is the net, KenPom, BPI, strength of schedule, all of that information for Ohio State, Cincinnati Xavier, the Dayton Flyers, Indiana's in the mix as well. And then, of course, with their quad 1, 2, 3, and 4 results and records as well. There's so many things to comb through. One week I feel like, man, Cincy doesn't have a shot. Ohio State doesn't have a shot. Dayton's dead and gone. And then the next week they have a shot. This week, how are we feeling? How do we feel about these teams' tournament hopes as we sit here with all of that information to comb through at this point?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with UC and Xavier. UC had to win the game on Saturday. They did not. They played about as well as you could possibly play against Houston. Nobody expected them to win that game. You just got outmatched. I mean, the Bearcats, respectfully, have nobody that can play the 5 position, and it absolutely destroyed their chances. I think they had 1,000,000 points in the paint. I don't know what the actual numbers were. It felt like Houston made every single shot within 10 feet of the basket, and that's why they didn't win that game, amongst other things. Now, I won't blame the refs, but I'm going to blame the refs a little bit on that one. In terms of what do the Bearcats need to do, at this point, nothing. I think they're one conference win. They're going to be one conference win shy of making the tournament. They started this season way too terribly. You can't lose to Kansas State on the road like they did. You can't lose to Utah. You lost to West Virginia twice, one of them being, it looked like a game that a bunch of high schoolers were all like in detention for being forced to play a basketball game. It was terrible. And the Bearcats didn't do enough this year. We can sit here and spin it whatever we want. I can read that net ranking, which says they're 40th in the country in the net, 50th in KenPom. I can read all of that, and we can sit here and say that the Bearcats have a shot. I think they're too far away. I think they're too far away for me personally. They should be a tournament team. They looked like a tournament team towards the end of the season. But you start off like you do. You score 40 points in a game at home against Kansas, a team that's not very good, and you lose it. So I'm out on UC making the tournament. Xavier, they did what they needed to do. There were points during this season where Xavier looked completely lost. They looked like they lost their identity. Zach Fremantle, I thought he was gone after the crosstown shootout. He came back, and everything was right in the world. There was a little bit of a struggle there right after, but Xavier's been good. Xavier's been fighting all the way home. I think they've got enough marquee wins. They play in the Big East. I know it's having a down year, but I do think that Xavier's done enough to make the tournament as of this moment. Now, if they lose one of their next 2, then yeah, they're gone. But as of right now, I think Xavier should be in the tournament field. I don't know if they'll be an at-large or excuse me, I don't know if they'll be in the actual bracket or they'll be in the first 4. But I know Xavier will probably be in the tournament as long as they don't have an egregious loss to end the season. In terms of Indiana, I think Indiana's. I think a lot of people wrote off our guy Mike Woodson.
Mike Woodson wrote off Mike Woodson.
Correct. I think, yeah, but that's our guy. That's my guy. I'm going to call him my guy.
Next Bearcats coach?
Sure. I mean, it can't get worse. I think Indiana's done enough. I think they've done enough. I don't think it's a great back half of the bracket. I think the last few at-large bids are going to be pretty brutal in terms of years past. But, yeah, Indiana, I think, has done enough. 4 quad 1 wins is more than enough. Dayton, Sorry. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that team has stunk all year. I don't know what happened to them, but after they played UC, they became a completely different team. And they're, in my opinion, nowhere close to being a tournament team. And which is really unfortunate because that was UC's, second biggest win?
Yeah.
So that's brutal. Xavier and UC are combined 1 for 19 in quad 1 games. Not great. I just think Xavier's done enough.
2 for 19.
2 and 19.
They both have one win. Don't sell yourself short, man.
You're right. 2 and 19, but UC's could go away at some point too. So who knows? Yeah, I think this has been a very disappointing and frustrating year for me personally. I think Cincinnati basketball, I think there's a higher standard here, and I don't think pretty much anybody lived up to that standard this season. But saying that, there's still a couple teams with chances around the area locally. So good for them.
All 4 of these teams ranked at some point this year.
That's right. UC was ranked, I think, 15th in the country. Boy, how the dominoes fell on that one.
Casey, pop up that graphic one more time. And the thing that's interesting too is obviously you look at a team like Dayton and you look at their quad 1 opportunities. I mean, 4 quad 1 opportunities. A majority, if not all of those, coming in November and in December. You just look at, Indiana, who has 11 opportunities, Ohio State, 5 and 9. I mean, 14 opportunities there. I mean, look at the amount of the importance of being in these bigger conferences. Why that's so, huge is because when you're in those bigger conferences, you're going to get more of an opportunity to kind of fix your wrongs throughout. I mean, that's why 1 week we're out on Cincinnati. The next week there's still a chance. Then we count them out. And then, for instance, if they would have beat Houston over the weekend, that would have been a huge turnaround point of the season. And there's less than a handful of games remaining. But when you have this many quad 1 opportunities, it's just opportunities to continue to stay alive. Indiana has not been a great basketball team, but you get in, you can make some noise. There's just not going to be a lot of momentum that they take there. The Mike Woodson debacle in Indiana, it's not just that, they've been horrible and haven't won a lot of basketball games. They just haven't. He hasn't got them to the level that he was brought there to bring them to. You look at the fact that St. John's, they go out and they get a legendary head coach to come in, and Rick Pitino, and the first year, they're better than the previous season without him. And then now they're one of the top teams in college basketball. That's what Mike Woodson was expected to do at Indiana. That's what Indiana is going to look to do with their next hire, is to bring someone in and say, hey, we're not just looking to gradually, be a 20-plus win team and, by golly, fight in the middle of the pack to the Big Ten. They want to be a national power again because that's what they're supposed to be. So that's why they're moving on from Mike Woodson at the end of the day there, but they haven't been great. Dayton, Cincinnati, these 2 teams have had that roller coaster season. Dayton's out. I don't give them a shot. Cincinnati, I'm kind of out on at this point as well. Xavier's still a bubble team. Ohio State, they have 2 games remaining. 1 minute I'm out on them. The next, their resume keeps them in the talk to get in. We'll see. But as of right now, it looks like we might, for the state of Ohio, only get 1 at-large team. There were some people that criticized the social media post on Chatterbox last week. Don't forget about Akron. Don't forget about Miami of Ohio at large. As far as at-large opportunities are concerned, I think we're just going to get 1, and I think that's going to be Xavier when it's all said and done. Possibly 2 if Ohio State can string together some wins to close out the regular season and win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament, which tips off a week from Wednesday.
I don't think that Xavier can, again, this is where I am right now. I'm not the biggest Xavier guy in the world. They play Butler and Providence to end the year. You lose one of those, you're done. No chance. You win both of those 2. I think you're cemented at least in Dayton. I don't think there's anything that could take it away from them at that point if you win the next 2. If I were a Xavier fan and we got the selection Sunday, I win those 2, and assuming, I don't know, you might play UConn in the Big East conference tournament. I don't think that game would matter at all, really. I mean, it could help, I guess, a little bit, but usually the committee has their mind made up. Especially as we get later and later into those conference tournaments. So those winning games in those tournaments don't matter as much as you'd like to think they do. I think Xavier, you win those 2, you're in. You might be in Dayton, but you're in. UC, you win your 2 last games, you got nothing. You got no chance.
You got to win, 2 or 3 more?
And you'd have to win. I mean, it literally depends on what they constitute meaningful basketball in the conference tournament. If they constitute that matters, then UC has a chance because you can get 2 more, 3 more quad 1 wins, I guess, in the conference tournament. I just don't think that's realistic, nor do I think it's even plausible that UC could go out and win quad 1 games because they haven't done it under Wes Miller. He's been an abject failure when it comes to winning games that matter. No disrespect, but I mean it's been a disaster. You haven't beaten Houston 1 time. What a joke. What a joke.